All right. Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started, and then I'm sure people will continue to join in, Peggy. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hill, Director of Member Engagement at ADHA, and I just want to welcome all of you tonight. Thanks for joining us for our third member engagement chat. Just a quick reminder, if you weren't able to be on the first two, those were recorded and sent out to everybody, but if for some reason you didn't get it, you can just contact us at ADHA and we'll send you the link. But I will pass this over to Peggy Hoffman, who's been leading us in our chats for a very engaging discussion. And a reminder that we have one more remaining after this, and Peggy will tell you a little bit about that one towards the end. So Peggy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And yes, we will talk a little bit more about the fourth and final one because it's the place where you guys are going to star. But right now, we have to get into our current conversation, and I just always like to let people know that sometimes we're in a webinar, particularly at this time of night. If you're on the East Coast, you may afterwards go, oh, what did she say? You definitely have the webinar to look at and the resources, but you can also contact me. This is the kind of stuff I'm passionate about, so always happy to chat. But today's chat's going to be about chatting. It's going to be about the conversation has started. And I'm super excited about this one because as my business partner, AKA husband and best buddy will tell you, I love to chat. And it gets me very disappointed when chats don't happen for other people and when we don't get where we need to go. So pull up your strawberry lemonade, your red wine, your ginger tea, or whatever else you are drinking tonight, and let's talk about how we can join the conversation that's already started. Now, I had to start with this infographic. It's a little bit old. As you'll notice, it stops at 2010. What I totally love about this is, first of all, see how nothing changed between 1833 and 1876, and very little between 1904 and 1963. And then you have 79, 93, 98, 2010, and of course, we could go on with an even smaller and smaller intervals up to 2019. Isn't this cool though when you think about it? Okay, now you do not have to say your age or chat or anything, but I gotta tell you, unfortunately, I totally remember rotary dial, and actually my grandmother who lived with us had a shared line. So you'd pick up the phone, somebody's always talking, so you'd put it down. So I know that. Okay, I look a lot younger than I am, all right? I remember getting the push buttons and thinking how excited that was. I remember not getting my first cell phone until we got through all of these big old ugly ones, but I did have a BlackBerry. I did. What can I say? So communication continues to change. The channels continue to change. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to bring up a poll for you. I'd love to know, how do you prefer to communicate professionally? Now, I'm talking about just in general. Are you an email type of person, a text type of person, a phone, a social media? Maybe there's other, and if it's other, throw it in the chat line. Yes, Lynn, party line. Glad somebody understands it. Thank you. So you might say, well, I don't know, I could do them all. But yeah, but what's your, what's the go-to that you have? What's the go-to that you have to communicate professionally? So we're getting some folks in. Good. I'll give you a few more seconds here. I will tell you that it's interesting that we did have choices that all of you were able to find pretty quickly. Let me end the polling and show you. Okay, so basically, you are in the norm. 57% of you who said email, right? 29% text. I'm getting love text. It's interesting that no one said social media. It's not surprising, but I am finding how many more messages I get through LinkedIn that just don't come through email. So yes, you check them and you check all multiple times a day. Well, Leanne, you'll find out a little bit later that you and I are unfortunately in a vast majority and that we're constantly checking. So I feel like we've got a kindred spirit here, and I thank you for that. So I brought that up to you because we all have different preferences. As you saw, some of us were email, some of us were text, some of us were phone, some of us are all over the board. The thing that we have to remember is that regardless of which channel that you're going to talk about, the basic principles exist. And what I mean with the basic principles? Well, there's 5 things that don't change regardless of the channel. The first one is a conversation only happens if it's two-way, right? It's got to be a give and a take. It's got to be me talking to you and you talking to me. Unfortunately, because of email and to a certain degree social media, we've gotten into this habit of push, and that's not conversation. The second is that our communications have to be focused on the recipient. It can't be focused on us and our needs, although I understand we're communicating because of us and our needs. But by recipient focused, I mean we really have to be able to put ourselves in the seat, the voice, the preference of our recipient, and make sure that we're just hitting their pain points and their interest points. Third is it has to be relevant. Way too much communication isn't. Most of what we send out from our state organizations, our chapters, are relevant. It's just that we miss the recipient focus, and that's where the miss happens. But we have to be timely. And now timely is different now. It used to be back in snail mail days. If you were going to have a workshop, let's say, for example, you were going to have a meeting in your state, and you were going to have it in April, you better have had that out in the mail in December. But that's not timely for us today. I mean, yeah, nice to have a calendar and a save the date maybe, but timely is much closer. So you gotta hit me at the moment that I'm ready to make the decision, or that it's the right time to make the decision. And finally, it has to be personal. We've gotten into this habit of this global email, right? Send this, everybody. You know, you say in your state, hey, get this email out to everybody, and yet it may not be for everybody. So here's an example, and some of you know already. I own a management company. And our management company, we manage 3 chapter-based organizations. Not one of you guys, although you guys are awesome. That's not the reason why we're not managing. But anyway, 3 chapter organizations. And even a chapter organization, so let me give you one, Public Relations Society of America. We've got about 300 members. We have a nice little group here. We had a wonderful coffee with, actually, yesterday. We closed it off at 15. We had 15. Now, here's the deal. They kept saying to me, Peggy, we're a little nervous about filling this thing. Can you keep sending it out? I said, no, if I send it out to the right people. So the coffee with was at an agency, and it was about a specific topic. So I went into my database, and I sent the reminder to the individuals for whom the job titles match. Now, it's not an apples to apples for you, but if you knew what people were interested in, you could personalize a little bit more your emails. Okay, let's not go too deep in that, but just remember, every time you're putting together an email Communications, a social media post. Think of these things. Communications is two-way. It's a recipient focused. It's got to be relevant and timely, and the degree to which you can make it personal is what's going to make all the difference. All right, let's stay for a moment on that two-way. Our job in our groups is to create conversation. You would agree to that, right? I don't think anybody would disagree that part of developing member engagement is creating that conversation. Well, there's really two strategies. Well, there's a lot, but I'm going to narrow down to two strategies to create conversation. One is about the content, and one is about the person. So let's talk first about the content, because it's critical that we think in terms of fresh content. Let me give you a couple of examples. The first one I'm showing you here is the Red Cross. Okay. So what I love about this is that the Red Cross during Disaster Month, which is in Preparedness Month is in September. What they do is a series of emails. They actually go past the week of 1 to 8, and do the whole month. And what they do is they send out each and every day a different tip about being prepared. Some of the tips are their own. Many of them are things that they've grabbed and they're sharing. This little tip creates a fresh content stream. Let me give you another example, because I totally love this one from the nurses. So, and this actually, there's a longer story behind it, but they came up with the Share Your Stethoscopes. It's a hashtag, and it was intended to push back at a negative set of comments actually on The View about nurses and whether they had the right to wear the stethoscope. So they said to all their members, "Okay, let's go ahead and just take a picture of you and your stethoscope." This went viral back in 2015, and it created this wonderful stream of fresh content. Now, I thought of that one when I thought about you guys as dental hygienists, because you're in the healthcare marketplace, and there's sometimes things that get said about this that is like, what? Like, we know better than that. Is there that opportunity? Fresh content happens when we take the time to sort of capitalize on smaller things, when we take the time just to, in general, to vary, right, what we're putting out there. So the Show Your Stethoscope, the using a month where you put a message out either month, but maybe it's also about, I loved what the fire protection folks did. They had Monday member, and each Monday their content was just to highlight a member. And they had Tuesday tip, and each Tuesday they put out a tip from a member. And they had 3 different days of the week where they named it. And I remember those two clear as a bell. I don't remember the third one, but it doesn't really matter. The point is they had a tip, they had a member profile. It could be a share of content. The point here is if you're going to create a conversation, you got to be interesting, right? So let me throw a poll at you. Okay, I'm going to ask you which of these rules is true, and the polls have to do with, or the rules rather, have to do with how much content or the ratio of content you should share. So tell me, do you think that your sharing, whether it's social media and email, should be owned, 60% owned, 25% curated, 15% promotional? Maybe you say 50-50-10. Maybe it's 30-60-10. Now, let me help you out here, because some of you are going to say, I don't understand what owned and curated is. Owned is stuff that you created. Curated is stuff you saw that was of interest and you shared. Promotional is come to our event next week, or join, or like this page, or volunteer today. All of those are promotional because they're related to pushing forth what you're trying to get done. All right. So 60-25-15, 50-50-10. I love it. You guys are way too smart for the 50-50-10. I'll just say that out loud. You don't have to worry about it. 30, 60, 10, 33, 33, 20. Okay. All right. Let me show you what you said. So there's a high correlation around 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Fine. Let me show you the answer. It's 30, 60, 10. So 30% of what you're sharing, you need to originate. It's got to be stuff you come up with. 60% is curated, stuff you found and it's exciting. But you really need to keep the promotion down to 10%. Here's the problem. Most of us in state-based, chapter-based organizations, we do about 60% promotion. And I understand it. It's like your urgency is to get out that you need to get these people here. The problem is they stopped following you because you weren't giving them content that was worth it. Oh, I'm just seeing Leanne saying with Michelle's them, the hashtag United We Soar. Totally love that one. Okay, great hashtag. So here's the thing. How do you get to 30, 60, 10? Because you're liable to ask, and that's a great solution, a great question. So the curated is hashtag share your stethoscopes. You get people to share under your hashtag. 30% owned is not as hard as you think, particularly when you think about all the very cool content that comes out of ADHA that you can share, right? That can be considered content. So if there's a great article that happens, you can link to that. It's a kind of quasi-curating, but it's coming from your own family. 30% owned is you've got people that are saying things, doing things, right, that you can share. Get some videos of folks talking about life on their job, right? Ask a question, a poignant question about, like let's say working with having patients that are disabled, and get like 5 or 6 people to talk about how they handle it. That's 5 or 6 different shares. So actually getting to the owned is not the difficult part. It's staying away from the 10% that's the difficult part. Now, if you need to do a lot of promotion, I always say 10% can be this big or this big. It depends upon the pie. So if you need to do more promotion, start doing some more curating and some more owning. Make sense? Let me give you a couple of ways that you can expand on this. Let's talk first about polls. I just mentioned, if you ask people, how do you work with, say, for example, a patient with disability, or maybe it's a kid, or maybe it's you know what, more and more boomers, maybe it's a senior. Do a poll, 1 or 2 questions, then use the content from those polls to create to create owned content, right? Second is the Q&A. I love the Friday question. Not my idea. I have used it though, and it's awesome. So you go out with a provocative question on a Friday. Maybe it's to an email group. Maybe it's to an online community. You ask a question. Why Friday? Now, maybe Friday isn't the right day for you guys. Don't completely know your profession. You tell me what might be the right day. But you go to a day that's a little bit slower, or a day where there's a sense of the wrap up, and you say, so what about, it's like I'm scratching my head on this, and you ask the Friday question. You're liable to get at least one response that you can go ahead and use. Okay, how about comments? So if you allow comments on a blog, or even send an email and say, hey, send me your comments. All of those will yield content. And finally, tags. Okay, what do I mean by tags? So how many of you are on social media? Go ahead and type in. If you're on social media, you know that you can tag an individual that you are connected to or following. And so by a tag, I'm talking about like at Peggy Hoffman. What an awesome conversation around the conversation just started. If you're on Twitter, right? If you're on LinkedIn, at Peggy Hoffman, sharing great tips on how to create content. I don't know. You don't need to do that. But when you do a shout out or a tagging, it brings people into the conversation. So that's all I want you to think about. So even if you're not, let me give you an example. When we did our annual conference for PRC Maryland, it's a Maryland-based organization, I did a post on LinkedIn, and I said, and there were 3 influencers we brought in to talk about helping us influence our consumer base. And I did this really cool post. I say cool post because it got a lot of response. This really cool post, and I talked about how excited I was to be able to hear from, and I tagged these individuals. Now, one of these people is a real, well, she's a mommy blogger, in case you haven't, if you've heard of her, you know what I mean. She responded. So that became a conversation. Why? Reason why I said that post was successful, because I had about 6 replies to that conversation. So tagging can create a conversation. All right. Let's move on to strategy 2. Because I think you get the fact that you need fresh content. But how do you put a face on the communications? Because at the end of the day, an email will hit my phone, right? Or my desktop, and you're hitting it with everybody else. Social media posts will go out to everybody, right? So how do you create the sense that this is something more than just a generic post? So begin to think about how important it is to write emails, social media posts, blogs, any of those things in first person. I know, and I'm sure that to a certain degree in your own business, because all of the insurance stuff, everything is in third person. You're very used to and familiar with that, and yet conversation requires first person. Secondly, use names. Do not hesitate to use your own name, to use the name of the individual you're writing to or reaching out to, and to include other names. I mean, the power of names is like all of a sudden I feel like I'm with a group of people that care about me, right? And third, add photos. The reason why I'm on video today is because I'm a real person. I'm like right here. You're seeing me in my office. Whether it's video or photos, it's bringing the face to the people. And how important is that? It lets people know that there is a person here. There's a person behind this conversation. And it means that you're talking not with a robot, but you're actually talking with me. All right. So the 2 strategies to really make sure it's a conversation is that hold back content, making sure it's engaging and it's fresh, and secondly, putting this personal thing about it. I want to segue a little bit, and I want to talk about 3 channels. And I want to talk about 3 channels because these are the 3 channels that I think as folks that are in state organizations, we kind of grapple with or use a lot. Social media, email, and those all-important virtual meetings, right? Let's start with social media. Man, is there like every day is different. I'd like you to type into the box, if you could, which social media platforms are you the most active on, okay? And I don't care if it's professionally or with the chapter or personally, just what are the ones that, of the ones you're seeing right here, what are the ones that you're most comfortable with? Okay, Facebook, Twitter, awesome. What else? Anything else? Yeah, Instagram. I love it, Holly. Beautiful, beautiful. Instagram, Amy. Awesome. Great. LinkedIn. Yes, Shannon. We sometimes forget about LinkedIn. I love it. Instagram. Awesome. Facebook. Twitter. Great. Keep it coming. So one of the interesting things about social media is that it's ever changing. Are you right? I mean, there are, in my opinion, from a professional standpoint, we're never going to get away from Facebook and LinkedIn. Twitter, yes and no. I think that the big thing that we have to think about, though, is Instagram. And I love how many of you have said Instagram. So let me add this extra question for you guys. How many have an Instagram account for your state organization, for your state or state organization? Renee, Snapchat, awesome. Oh my gosh, very cool. So let me know, how many of you have an Instagram account for Oklahoma? Yay! For your organization. Great. Because I'm telling you what, Instagram, in terms of really engaging, to a certain degree, next gen, but really engaging the conversation in a very visual format is awesome. Keep coming in, guys. Keep coming in. Yes, Julie. You need to, Julie says, I need to have an Instagram account for my organization. Yes, I mean, I know it's crazy, but, you know, even probably the practice you work in. So I just got my teeth cleaned, and you can't see. I love, by the way, my dentist, and I really love my my hygienist, and it's and my kids, everybody goes there. But anyway, you know, everything about that, you love the practice and the hygienist, and you love the process because they're people, right? And Instagram really, really helps us see the person or the individual in that. But I want to highlight a couple of things for you. Besides Instagram, I want you to look at the thing in the center, which is the podcast. It's the orange one with the two arcs going out. Podcasting is really a growing segment of how we're delivering content, in part because it really helps us communicate, engage, and have conversation. The second one, though, and I'm going to flip back for just a moment, is Facebook Live. Do any of you use Facebook Live? Type in. Yeah, Lynn, I totally understand about the personal Instagram. I kind of come and go on that. I'm much more. Oh, thank you, Amy, for sharing that. I'm really, you know, but I follow people all the time. I don't post very much, so I totally understand that. So good, thank you, Leanne. So Facebook Live, okay, you guys are in a place where you're trying to connect people that are all over the state, right? Facebook Live can be that place where you can bring people together. One of the cool things I did at our annual conference, and it was like of the moment. So I have these 3 vendors out in front, and nobody was like paying attention to them. And I went to each one of them while everybody was getting in line for lunch because we had a buffet. And I went to each one of them and I said, hey, give us a tip about X. So one was the photographer, one was a printer. And they gave us an X, and I Facebook Lived them. And then I went through the line where people are waiting because they're just waiting for lunch. And I said, hey, what's your takeaway so far? And I Facebook Lived it. So we had this series of Facebook posts for that day, which helped people see that this was an event that was, you know, something worth getting involved in. Oh, South Dakota, you started a podcast. Oh my gosh, you've got to tell us more and share more about that. That is awesome. And Holly, you tried Facebook Live at Legislative Day. Yeah, okay, you may not love it, but the point is, and I love the fact that you're honest, thank you. The thing here is that it allows people to interact with you. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about communicating, engaging, and having conversations. So I want to lay on you a couple of things to consider as you're looking at social media. And believe me, I don't want to overdo social media, but I do want to tell you that if you find the place, Instagram, Facebook Live, that's going to make a difference for you, enter in with a lot of glee and intention. And let me suggest a few things. Do use hashtags. Hashtags allow people to engage in a conversation, track a conversation. Don't go, a couple of do's and don'ts. Make sure it's easy to remember and spell. Do a quick little research on Twitter search, on twitter.search.com to make sure it's not something that's got something already. You might consider an incentive. So what we did, and I'll just, full disclaimer, it didn't work as vibrantly as I wanted to, but enough that I'm going to try it again. We had one speaker who did a hashtag, and if you responded to her, you got $5 off our registration. So we only had one person cash in on that, but that's okay. I had other people that were interested. Don't over hashtag. So don't in your, you know how there you'll see like a LinkedIn and it'll be like 12 hashtags. Don't do that, okay? And don't use all caps locks. Don't yell at people. Make sure your hashtag is a friendly hashtag. So just a couple of suggestions about that. 2, you know, folks do not use their account bios to their benefit. And what I mean with the account bio, because you know what, if you go onto your Facebook group or Facebook page, the bio is about thee, right? It tells people about you. Okay, take the time in that. Add a call to action. Join us. Sign up for our membership list. Whatever it is, put the call to action in there. Use a hashtag and give them a URL to click through. Okay? On Twitter, Same thing. On LinkedIn, if you've got a company page, and the main reason why you have a company page on LinkedIn is if you're liking to do some sponsored updates, or if you want the company page to be the one posting. It's not a big deal. But use the account bio to make sure people know how to connect with you and how to make the most out of the relationship. Make it easy. Collect all the assets. So whoever's doing your social media, so this is what I love. So one of the things we did, and we continue to do for PRSA Maryland, is we put up, and then I'll give you an example. So for our annual meeting, we put up a spreadsheet in Dropbox. And in the spreadsheet, we put, as we get them, all the speakers' names, their Twitter handles, a link to their bio, and a link to their photo. And on that spreadsheet has all of the important things. It has the bit.ly link to registration. It has the hashtag for the event. It has the logo. It has, and we always do art for email, Twitter, Facebook, and all those arts are all in that same file folder. So whoever is tweeting or linking or posting or emailing has everything together, and the message stays very cool. It will take a little bit of time to pull that together, but it's particularly for an event, or if it's for the organization, wow. That consistency, it allows people to see your conversation. Third, and I want to talk about this is the community. So I laid on to you that earlier 30, 60, 10, and in a community, it shifts a little bit. You really have to make sure that 80% of the posts are informative and their answers and their free info, and 20% is about you. So if you have a Facebook page, and a number of you do, a page or a group, get somebody who will constantly share information. And it's real easy. Tell them if they see something that they think is interesting, they ought to just share it through the page, okay? Just easy to share, free information. If they talk to someone and someone gives them an idea, tell them to share it. That's how you're going to create community, and people are going to want to stay around your program. All right. 3 things I want to share with you. Saw this in the data, best times to post on social media, Twitter. You know, I don't know how truly scientific these are, but if you're trying to find the best time, Thursday at 12 p.m. or Friday between 11 and 12. Okay, so basically Thursday noon, Friday heading up to the noon hour. Instagram, Friday at 2 p.m. I don't know why, but I do know that I fade on Fridays about 2 p.m., so there you go. And Facebook, Wednesday and Fridays at 2 p.m. The magic number here is between 12 and 2. Do you see that? And the magic number is loaded towards the mid to end of the week. So if you're trying to figure out, hey, what should I do? Hey, maybe this will help you direct some information and correct some timing and some efforts. Okay, let's talk about email. So the first thing I want to mention to you about email is, guess what, guys? Totally not dead. 85% of us still email. Oh, by the way, about 78% of teenagers email. There are something like 74 trillion emails every year. Apparently, 99% of us check it every day. I love Leanne admitting to that earlier. And apparently, a significant number of us are checking it 20 or more times a day. I don't think I'm 20 times a day, but I know I obsess a little bit about it. And I've got three email accounts. I meant 1, 2, 3, 4 email accounts. I forgot about the other one. So I am checking, I have to admit. I like being connected and I like to have conversations, so it kind of makes sense. So the question is, if this much email is going through, what can we do to make sure that the emails as leaders get through, right? So here's a few tips I'd like to share with you. The first is avoid the kitchen sink. Edit every email for focus. I mean, I know this sounds corny, but really you should think about an email being one topic, one subject, one point. I know we want to say, like, oh my God, I got there's 3 emails that have to go out this week. Let's put it in one email. The problem is whatever is on the top is the one that gets read and the other ones don't get read. And if the most important one happens for some reason to be 3, well, I just want to say this, but also say this flat out, you failed. So edit for focus, be real clear, and secondly, tailor the message. I don't know how many of you, and go ahead and chat in here for us, how many of you are using a MailChimp or a, let's see, a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or something along that lines for email? MailChimp, good, Constant Contact. Okay. Do you know all of these allow you to tailor the message, like to do, based on a group, a different message? You might want to really think about how do I shift that? How do I make sure I tailor the message? If nothing else, let's say you have to put out an email like we did. We're doing a tour of WBAL, which is a TV station. We're PR folks. Tailor the message so that right from the start, the person knows that this is for people who are working with media, and then they can just ignore it if it doesn't. You know why this works? Because if I know at the beginning that the message is tailored to somebody and it doesn't fit me, I don't worry about it. There's maybe a little bit of pushback, but I will look at that first part, and I will hone in when it works for me. All right. The next thing I really want you to focus on is to limit the length. Think mobile. You have to think mobile. And that means you got to think of, what am I going to be able to easily see on this screen? I mean, we know that about 80% of people say that they spend most of their time reading email, checking news, those kinds of things on their mobile device, adults, that is. So be aware of the fact that your email is going to likely hit a crowded inbox and maybe an inbox that is on a phone. And so how do you limit the length? Just keep it tight, keep it short. You can always put in links. And I want to just mention to you that you really have to be visual. And by that, I mean, think in terms of pictures, graphs, infographics, wordles, videos, any of those things. You really have to think in terms of how do you create the visual nature? Because we're all stuck on that, right? That's what connects us, right? So there's lots of things you can do. Obviously, the pictures. And by the way, can I just make a comment about pictures? We are so used to pictures through our phones. People are not picky. Do not say, oh my gosh, this picture isn't great. How can I send it? If it's personal, if it's relevant, if it's a visual representation of your message, go ahead. Use it. Don't worry about perfection. I love it. Rebecca says that she mentioned that we do this at IDHA and we have Constant Contact, and I totally love the fact that you guys can help your states understand this. Let me ask you a poll, and I want to find out how many words should be in your subject line. Do you think it's less than 4? Do you think it's 5 to 7? Do you think it's 6 to 8? Do you think no more than 10? Now, I didn't put more than 10 because if you were thinking more than 10, I need to tell you we need a little bit more work. All right. So people are jumping in here. Yes, Holly, I totally agree. We want to hear about their podcast, and I think we might need to bring them on for the next webinar. So I'll get with Jennifer at the headquarters on that. All right, guys, you've logged in, and I totally love it. Like you're completely split between less than 4 and 5 to 7. Very cool. I mean, I would say that you're close. Let me share with you what science says. 6 to 8 words. That's right. You can go a few more words than you were thinking. Here's the thing, is that you have to make sure that you personalize but you don't use dear, that you include keywords and that you remove all filler words and you test for spam. And there's several places online you can do that. So I gave you the subject line, get members opening email 5 tips. So 5 or a number works a lot. I could have been really grammatically correct and say, get your members to open their emails. But the get your to open their email, those are filler words that are unneeded. So you could get up to 8 words, err on the 6, but the most important thing is include only keywords, remove filler words, and go ahead and test for spam. Avoid the exclamation point. I'm just going to tell you that right up front. And avoid words like, I know it's kind of crazy, free, prize, because those are words that people assume are coming from a spam. But actually, you've got a few more words than some of you thought that you had. Oh, thank you, Amy, for sharing that link. Nothing but the tooth. I'm definitely going to check out that link. All right. The other element about the email. So we've talked about making sure you understand it's based on mobile, that you've tailored the message, you've edited the kitchen saying, it's getting the timing right. So there's been a lot of research on this. And while I will just say that for your profession, it may tweak a little bit, and I don't know if ADHA has done any research on this in terms of when they get the best opens, but I can tell you that based on search engine land, we've got some data about the best times to do emails. Wednesday is the peak day for sharing. In other words, an email that heads up, if I'm going to pay attention to it and share it, it's going to be on a Wednesday, so about midweek. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is a peak hour. And 9:30. And I'm not sure if that's just because, it's after the day has started and we're kind of embedded. What can I say? 75% of the clicks occur within the first day. So part of the reason for sharing this is that we sometimes wonder, I sent the email out, nobody responded. Well, if it wasn't an urgent email and it didn't get opened within the first day, there was a low chance that there was going to be a response to it. That's the reason why I've sent this to you. So you have to say to yourself, if I didn't get those, maybe I need to resend it because it just didn't get noticed, or need to look at the urgency. And finally, I thought this was really interesting that, because I used to say, make sure you have social sharing buttons all over everything. And apparently there's 10 times more folks say they will 10 times more often they will copy and paste, which goes back to creating emails that are a little terse, short, and focused, so somebody can grab the key parts and share it. All right. So we talked a little bit about email. We talked about social media. I think that one of the most important things is that we need to really optimize our volunteer muscle. Am I right? And optimizing the volunteer muscle is making sure that we have some pretty incredible meetings. And we can't have those meetings in person to person most of the time, can we? I mean, like, we couldn't have this. This is a conversation, and I love all the chat that's happening. The reality is that we can't always get together in the same room. So let's talk in our final bit of time here about how we make our meetings really rock. And I'm going to put up a poll because I'm really curious to hear in what ways you are possibly changing up your meeting. Has any of you started thinking in terms of, you're going to pick the one that you've used, okay, or that you've thought about, and there may be more than one, but tell us the one that's most salient to you. Have you looked at changing the time? Have you added video conferencing? Have you added presentations or videos as resources? Have you used icebreakers? Did you invite guest speakers or presenters? Maybe you've done none of the above, or maybe you've got something else that you've tried that I haven't mentioned. Go ahead and just share with us what you might have done in the context of changing up your meetings. Let's see, we're getting in some folks. And thank you, Amy, for sharing that information. Love it. And you know what? It doesn't necessarily have to be completely related to the practice of hygiene, does it? I mean, you're building a conversation, and I'm sure you guys have more aspects about your lives than just simply hygiene. All right, we got a number of people putting in. I love it. I love it. Let me show you what folks are saying, because I think we've got about 50% of you have voted. Okay. So I love this. 33% of you have used video conferencing, and about 33% have invited guest speakers. Awesome. Some of you have changed the time. Some of you have added presentations or videos, and one of you have added icebreakers. Oh, you need to type in what icebreaker you've tried, because we all need icebreakers in meetings, virtual or face-to-face. So please share. Oh, great, Leanne. Thank you. Okay, Tiffany, you use the icebreakers at all virtual meetings. Okay, come on, share. Tell us what you've done. All right. I want to talk about 3 parts of the meeting, and I realize that we're already at 8:46. We've been having a great conversation because the chat has been awesome. But I want to get through this portion because this is going to make a difference. I believe in really getting your volunteers the muscle, right? 3 elements of a meeting: setup, during, and post, in which you can create a more vibrant meeting. Let's talk about the setup. Let's talk about, first of all, I want you to set the agendas thinking in 10-minute segments. That's right, 10-minute segments. That's the attention span that we have that allows you to make sure you organize the content, and then it allows you to go, wait a minute, I have 6 10-minute segments, and I have a 45-minute call. So it just helps you organize, right? Secondly, I want you to be really intentional about the agenda. And the agenda must start with the why. So what do I need? Do I need a decision? Is this a decision? Is this I need to have ideas so that we can move forward? I need to let people know that this is happening. I need to have a specific action done. What is the why? What is the most important thing? When this meeting is over, what has to have happened, right? Once you've figured out that, then you say, in order for that to happen, who has to be in the room? Too many times. We don't think of the who, and then a person that we expected doesn't show, or people ask a question and the conversation doesn't have the person, the subject matter expert in the room. So I love it when Leanne said we have guest speakers at our meetings. This notion of having guests at a meeting. So what do I mean by that? So, if you're going to be talking about, let me give you an example. Let's say you want to talk about how do I change up our educational event. Can you get a local adult learner expert into the room? So if you were in Maryland, for example, okay, I raised my hand, right? Have me come into your board meeting and talk about, what's changed about adult learning and how can I use that? So if you're going to have a conversation, understand the bandwidth in the room and say, is there a guest, someone I want to bring in, a subject matter expert I want to bring in? Let me give you another example. Let's just say, for example, that you're thinking about using social media, Facebook Live, and you happen to know someone knows a friend who's done this regularly. Bring that person into the meeting and have them chat. That who is going to make this a much richer conversation. The what does the who need to know in order to be prepared? So make sure they have stuff that they need. Is it a report? Is it a white paper? Is it a set of questions? What do they need to do to be really engaged and involved in this conversation? Then think about the order and the timing or the sequence of this. So it's really important that when you're putting together a meeting that you think about in order for this conversation to yield what I need, what has to happen before it? So let me give you an example, and this could go either way. Let's say that you want to brainstorm on a new event. You may need to say, in order for us to have a brainstorm, we have to stay within some parameters. So let's make sure we understand what the budget is and what our parameters are and what our financial goals are. Now let's have the brainstorming in the context of that. But maybe you don't want that to enter in. Maybe you want to go really blue sky. Then don't do the accounting and budget report first and then get into the brainstorming, because all these people are going to feel hindered by whatever you talked about. If it's a difficult conversation, like let's say you have to make a tough conversation, like, okay, so one of the groups we manage, let's just face it, a lot of things happened and the meeting wasn't pulling, and this was going to be a real loss leader. So what do we want to do about it? We had a tough conversation at the board meeting about, do we pull the plug or not? We're going to lose a little bit of money, but we could lose more here. It's real easy for you to say in the meeting, let's get rid of all the easy stuff and then come to that. But the energy level is the ability to feel risky is the ability, the energy, the complexity of it is not. No, if it's an important question, put it where it needs to go. If it's a difficult conversation, technical conversation, put it where it needs to go. That's what we say about talking about the order and the timing. Other thing about timing is if an agenda item needs a decision, say it up front. That way you can bring the conversation to a close to make that happen. And finally, the jazz. Do not forget the jazz. Do not forget the jazz. I have to say to people, do not forget the jazz. What's the jazz? The jazz is the icebreaker, right? Oh, I'm like, absolutely. The jazz is the guest speaker. The jazz is the TED Talk. The jazz is the video collage. Okay, set up. Don't forget the reminder. I know you know the meeting is happening the day of. Hey, looking forward to talking to you at 6 o'clock, or if it's going to be an early morning call, the night before. And finally, recruit help. Now, I know this sounds weird, but reach out in advance and ask certain members that are going to be at this meeting and say, hey, I need a little bit of help. And maybe the help is, we're going to have a discussion about the event, and I need someone to specifically take notes and then synthesize it for us. Or maybe it's, hey, I've got 3 or 4 people who don't much speak up. Can you be in charge of asking them to talk? Okay, fine. Or maybe it's say, hey, I sent this reading out, and did you read it? Great. Would you mind, when I mention it, would you mind being the one to start the conversation? The reason why I suggest this is we all know what happens when we're on a phone call, conference call, is that we all get silent. When you ask people in advance to recruit, to help, they will not be silent. Let's talk about during. Okay, first of all, absolute rules, start and end on time, absolutely keep an active action list. You know, as you're going, type it in. One of the things I do at a meeting that I have, it's a national committee meeting, we do a share screen and I have a Word doc open and I'm typing stuff in as I go. Definitely have a parking lot. Name it, state it, use it, right? A parking lot is where you say, thank you for that comment. That's a little bit off topic, or we may not get to that tonight. Let me put it over here. And then have a parking lot in your notes. Okay, anyway, do a smart open. That's the icebreaker. That's the TED Talk. That's the conversation that gets people going. Use polling throughout. We've used polling, you noticed, right? Get people to connect with the meeting, get people to be actively involved, and then use pauses and queuing. So, I mean, kind of like, what do I mean by that? What I mean by pauses and queuing is, it's okay. Just sort of slow down the pace. What do you guys think? So let me ask this question. During the meeting, what's the best tip you have to share about how you can keep the meeting active and engaged? So go ahead and type in for me the way that you keep the meetings going. Allowing this white space allows people to interrupt. Queuing is about saying, for example, Leanne, I totally love the guest speaker's idea, and I think that's something we should explore more. And then I would call on and say, so Leanne, can you collect your thoughts and then let me know what you think? Or if you've had a conversation, you need to go around and make sure everybody has voted. You can say, okay, the order of the vote is going to be Sally, Sam, Susan. Sally, can you get us started? Sam, you're up next. So that cueing, that sense of telling people, yes, Amy, calling on people for input is a huge way of doing it. Sometimes we don't want to do it. But if you say, Amy, I really believe that one of the options is calling on people for input. What do you think about that? I've said Amy first, so Amy now knows I've got her attention. I'm giving her a chance to process her thoughts. Okay, really simple. Yes, Tiffany, absolutely. If you are talking to people, you absolutely know who has an opinion. And for you to be able to say, hey, I think Tiffany, I think you had a thought about this. Can you share what you're thinking? Awesome. All right. Post, as we get in our waning moments here. You see, we spend a lot of time during. Sometimes we spend a little bit of time on the setup, but we don't do the post. So let me give you a quick little thought about the post. The first two elements are the 5-minute follow-up. This is something I believe in. When I close a meeting, within the first 5 minutes, I say, thank you for the call. Here are the primary action items. That's easy for me to do because I've got a rolling action list, right? Here are the 5 things. Minutes will be coming, right? Let's say you're not doing that. It's still a quick thank you to say to everybody, wow, thank you for the call today. Minutes are coming. The quick thank you, the 5-minute follow-up, priceless. You've got people's attention still. Make sure you close the deal, right? Evaluate. See, here's the deal. We have these meetings. We don't know if it went well or not. Sometimes we think the meeting went horribly, and it really went fine. So I always suggest at the end of the meeting, if you have time at the close of the meeting or an immediate poll, ask 3 questions. Were the topics discussed important to the association? Did we make effective use of your time? Do you feel you participated sufficiently? Just 3 quick questions. And actually, it can be yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, right? And then give them the option to do comments. The fact that you've asked knows that you're interested in continual improvement. And remember at the beginning we talked about communications. What is it? It's a conversation. And this creates a conversation. Yes, Renee, absolutely. You said it better than I did. It validates people and it makes it personal and customized, and everybody likes to feel important. Totally, totally like that. And then check-ins. Make sure that whoever has an action item, you follow up with in a reasonable period of time to say, everything good with that action item? How you feeling? Can you get it done? All right. We have talked about a lot of stuff today, I realized. But, I understand that in our world, the virtual communications is a huge piece of how we're going to keep our groups together. We want to continue this conversation. And so in closing, and if you've got questions, start typing them in the chat because I'm more than happy to do that. And I think I see that there's a Q&A here. I love it, Tiffany. Thanks for asking the question. You asked for the quick thank you, do you do it all to participants at once or separate email? I actually, Tiffany, I've made it do things separately. I always use Outlook meeting notices for my board, right? And right after it, I send a message to the Outlook meeting notices that goes to everybody and goes, thank you for a great call. Here are the 3 action items. Then I will, time permitting and everything, like, for example, the last board meeting, the the person who does all the programs was, I just tell you, she just wowed me in the meeting, and I sent her a personal email. So I guess the answer is yes and no. I really do try to do a global thank you, and then I also do some personal thank you. So thank you for that question. All right. The last webinar is you being a star. We want you to submit your successes to share. I really, 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 really want you to do this. So Kelsey has said you can send your ideas to her. We're going to get with Kelsey. We're going to do a rapid fire ideas to succeed. And even if it's an idea and you've tried it but you don't have the results, share it with us, because maybe it's just one of those things that would blossom ideas in other folks. Be a star on the April webinar. Submit your success to share. Please send that to Kelsey. It's so exciting. Amy, what is more beneficial, less frequent and longer meetings or more frequent and shorter? Adult learners would tell us that more frequent and shorter or focused meetings is going to be better. When you increase the distance between meetings, you lose momentum, A, and B, you don't build community, and community is critical to having the board. So having more 30, 45-minute quick phone calls that are focused on a topic is going to yield much better for you. So that's my recommendation based on what I have seen in with my boards and in the research around meetings and adult learners and memory and all those kind of great things. Thank you for that question, Amy. All right. Be a star at the April webinar. Oh my gosh, we're 1 minute over. Can I just do this last thing so you all know? 5 ideas minimal to make your chapter shine. April 10th, same time, same place. We'll see you then. Hey, I gotta go. I reached back to Jennifer and Kelsey. Anything else that needs to be said? I went over my time. I apologize. What else do you need to add?
No, you're fine. This is Jennifer. You're good. We will send out this link to the recording to everyone, and then we'll also remind everyone, even those who couldn't attend, about submitting their ideas. So look for that email soon, and we will see everyone in April.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy. It was great.
Enjoyed it. Y'all have a great evening.
Okay, you too. Bye.